Nah,
Satu, dua, tiga. Okay, Assalamualaikum and good evening to Dr. Balkis. Hi, my name is Muhammad Nazri bin WAEHAMA and my partner Muhammad bin ROSHID going to be present to you on our case study. The other members are Nur SYAZWANI, NASRIN SYAHIRAH, SHIM KUEN that has also contributed in this case study. For today's study, we are going to present to you on extreme flood 2021 in Kelantan. Next. Okay, for this presentation, here are the outline where introduction, problem statement, objective and findings are going to be presented by myself, while for recommendations, conclusion and references going to be presented by Muhammad. Next. Okay, for the introduction, according to the World Health Organization, WHO, floods are the most common and frequent type of natural disaster in the world. It occurs when an overflow of water submerge land that is usually dry, and it occurs when, based on a news entitled Banjir di Kelantan, which record 6,371 mangsa setakat pagi ini, which was published on 8 January 2021, and it is significant heavy rain which began on 2 January 2021, which have caused flooding in Kelantan. The district of Kuala Krai, Pasir Mas, Gua Musang, Jeli, Tanah Merah, and Kota Baru had hit by floods. And Kuala Krai had recorded the highest number of victims at 3,063. Next. Okay, for the problem statement, Kelantan faces flooding problem annually during the Northeast Monsoon District, where in 2014, Kelantan was hit by an unpredictable massive flood. Based on the result of a study conducted by 2014 Flood Disaster Special Forensic Committee, the major flood event at East Coast Malaysia in 2014 was the worst ever recorded in the history of Malaysia since the past of 200 years. However, losses in life and money, climate change, and the flood management system are the challenges that need to be faced by the local communities every year. Therefore, countermeasures need to be taken to overcome the problem in the management of flood disaster in the future. Next. Okay, for the objective, there are four, which is the main we are going to discuss, where the first one is to investigate the potential causes of flooding in Kelantan, to identify the societal issues stem from the flood in Kelantan, to determine the responsibility of engineers in solving the flood in Kelantan, and lastly, to identify the mitigation controls of the flood in Kelantan. Next. Okay, for the finding, from this finding, we can divide it into three sections, which are the causes of the flood event, societal issues stem from the flood problems, and the consequent responsibility of engineers. Next. Okay, for the causes of the flood events, firstly are heavy rainfall. The continuous heavy rain in Gua Musang for 3 consecutive days has recorded that the huge rainfall distribution of 1,295 millimeter, which is equivalent to the rainfall distribution of 64 days. This specific factor of hydrometeorological variables in this case is heavy rainfall, and the storm event can cause detrimental effects to the society and nation, as in this incident at Gua Musang, Kelantan. This high rate of rainfall can damage the crops, livestock, and maybe the house properties. And according to the report from BH Online, during the Northeast monsoon period, the country is more likely to receive like stronger and continuous wind from the northeast, which is speed between 10 to 20 kilometers per hour. And this from this report, from 1 January till 5 January, the rainfall data in Kuala Krai recorded 368.22 millimeter, while in Kota Baru it is 65.4 millimeter. And this continuous heavy precipitation in the first week of January 2021 had caused serious flooding in Kelantan. Next. Okay, rainfall can be described into four characteristics, which are based on depth, depth, duration, intensity, and frequency. Therefore, for the flooding at Kelantan, it can be said that rainfall characteristics are based on the rainfall duration and intensity. Almost every year during the early stage of the northeast monsoon and EM season, the Kelantan River Basin (KRB) is known as a typical tropical river basin in Peninsular Malaysia, which always been affected. The river is 248 kilometers long and drains a basin area of 12,685 kilometers squared, which is covering more than 85% of the Kelantan state. And based on the flood report prepared by the Department of Irrigation and Drainage Malaysia, DID, flood have normally occurred in Kuala Krai, Tanah Merah, Machang, and Pasir Mas that are located the middle of downstream of KRB. However, in January 2021, the area of Gua Musang was the first district to be struck by this third wave of flooding. Next. Okay, for second, causes which is the human activities, which is such as deforestation, logging, land clearing, poor land use practices, and urbanization have caused flooding in Kelantan throughout the decade. The lack of vegetation encouraged water to flow over the surface rather than infiltrate into the soil, and this increased the surface runoff. Based on the report from Sina Harian in January, the Kelantan government denied that logging and land clearing activities caused the flood to happen. However, in 2017, the meteorology, forest, and sustainable development that have provided a few proofs to deny the statement of the government. Next. Okay, based on the satellite image, it's showing that the soil erosion from the cleared forest and also the accelerated erosion upstream causes development of sandbars in Kelantan. According to Associate Professor Dr. Haliza Abdurrahman, which is a senior lecturer from Department of Environmental and Occupational Health, Faculty Medicine and Health Sciences, University Putra Malaysia, she stated that the absence of forest will be hard to manage the flood problem because of the open surface on the soil surface and eventually causes erosion due to rain. Thus, the runoff to the streams and rivers will be faster and causing the big flood to happen. Next. Okay, the third causes are the poor drainage system where that exists in Kelantan, of course, which is the infrastructure is not able to cater the increased runoff, especially during the monsoon season. This act of throwing rubbish and stuff into the drain has worsened year by year, where the drainage system year by year had no action be taken down, or maybe no solution had been taken down. Next. Okay, for the second section, which we are going to discuss more about the societal issues stem from the flood problem. We have found that there are three main societal issues stem from this problem. And the firstly is destruction of resident property, including houses and infrastructure. Based on the report, one of the impact is the destruction of resident property, including house and infrastructure. This a big flood will drown the houses away, which is bring a massive loss to the society. And at the same time, report from BH Online said that a total of 13 roads were closed involving the district of Kuala Krai, Pasir Mas, Machang, which is due to the flooding, and this situation would be difficult for the people to move from place to another place. And secondly, many lives will be threatened and causing a few people died from this flood problem, which is the life of the community are threatened. In particular report from SYAZWANI, which is on January 5th, 2021, a teenage boy who is found to be dead causing by electric shock when he wants to weather the flood in Rantau Panjang. And in addition, a report also published by Cosmo which is stated a man have found floating in a trench when he tried to pass through the flood to go back to his house from Pasir Putih. Apart from that, the flood problem also has destroyed the crops and causing a big loss to the farmer and the agriculture sector, which is according to the Consumer Association of Penang, CAP 2013, the properties and the crops have been damaged and ruined due to the big flood that happened in Kelantan. And he also demanded that the government and parties that have that involved in this need to be take an action seriously. Next. Okay, for the last section, which is we're going to discuss on the consequent responsibility of an engineer. Firstly, adaptation and mitigation measures need to be considered, which is to avoid massive flood in the future. And based on Professor Emeritus Ibrahim Kumu, 2015, deterioration of the environmental quality is a major factor and causes of this disaster and massive destruction of property, which is due to the flood. Engineers should need and maybe should consider the environmental factor in designing, which is the first one, new bridge design need to be taken into consideration, which is why this is very important, because like the most bridges were built across the river in Lebir and Galas, which is the sungai, which is the river in Kelantan, have been inundated and by the floodwater up to 5 meter. Some of these bridges were damaged and obstructed the passage of the floodwater, which causes a severe disaster in nearby village. Besides, research programs should be taken into account as well, where the geoscience and geology engineers play a crucial role in preventing mitigation and preparing, like responding and recovering the future floods. Like the president of the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, IPCC, suggested that the government should bring up this issue, the flood issue, and conduct a research together with ASEAN countries regarding the effects of climate change to socio-economic development around the world. Other than that, the inspection of flood hit areas should be done, which is by urban renewal planning. The questions that need to be considered are which is such as whether the causes can be avoided near the future, and is there a way to minimize the risk of recurring the flood disaster is need to be considered. The planning of the recovery should be based on accurate measures and answers and based on the long-term capabilities. In other words, several town and village should be studied carefully where the some flood water reach 15 meter and above, where this urban renewal planning should be done by engineers in particular places in order to mitigate future flood disasters. Okay, next, I will pass to Muhammad to continue the presentation.
Okay, so thank you, Nazri. I will now continue the presentation. So I will first present about the recommendation. So in order to reduce flooding in Kelantan, two approach can be used, which is engineering approach, which is called structural measure, and also the non-structural approach, which is nature-based. So for the structural approach, there are actually six structural measures that we try to discuss here. So the first is the river improvement. So this method involves dredging, widening, and straightening the river channels to preserve drainage capacity and facilitate a smooth flow. So in the river, we try to widening and straightening it so that it can flow basically smoothly. Okay, so the river embankment are also constructed to prevent bank erosion and sedimentation, which have an impact on river drainage capacity. So we move on to the next solution, which is tidal gates. So this method control the tidal and fluvial method in the river mouth. For urban drainage system, urban drainage system is a drainage system that prevent flooding in cities. It also improve the water quality. The diversion of the relief channel is a method where it is built upstream of regularly flood areas to divert the flow. This can be open during high flows. So there are the number four solution that we propose. Number fifth is the multi-purpose dam. So it is actually quite effective in preventing flood. So in Kelantan State, they are actually collaborating with TNB to construct a Ninggiri Dam to prevent flood in the future. This is also to generate electricity for the Kelantan State. So we move on to the next solution for the structural measures, which is water pumps. This method was to be installed the water pumps, and when the river water rise to predetermined critical level, it will allow the water to be drained away. So when the water is rising until a critical level, then we will on the water pumps, and the water pumps will remove water at near another place, so it will not continue rising. So now I will proceed with the non-structural measures. Non-structural measures. It is actually a method where it is not involving any physical construction, and in particular with policies and laws, public awareness, training and education. So for the first step is actually the legislation. With laws and the regulations relating to the gazettement of the forest reserve and river reserve, it can be enforced as it directly can affect it to the flood. So if we enforce the law and the regulations, many people will be scared of it, and thus they will not act and do things that will be bad for the nature, and also will improve the flood problem. So for the second one is the public education and awareness. So as actually Nazri stated just now, that people tend to throw rubbish to the drainage system, it improve the flooding problem. So we need to improve the knowledge and preparation of the society, especially flood victims, to not do that. So it can help future flood losses, to reduce future flood losses, and also activities of flood warning and excavation programs can also be done to promote this method. So it will thus increase the public education and awareness campaign. Move on to the third, which is the relocation of the river communities. So actually in Kelantan, it is well aware that there is a local communities which is Orang Asli. So Orang Asli is actually always stay on river banks to get some fresh water and for their irrigation purposes. So Kelantan State need to cooperate with all the person who live in the water banks, so that it can bring positive achievement to the progress and schemes that were Kelantan proposed, like the Ninggiri Dam. So in order to proceed and to continue the continuation of the project of Ninggiri Dam, we need to have a collaboration with the local that stayed in the water banks, and to achieve their cooperation to move out from the places. Okay, for the gazettement of Greenbelt. So gazettement of Greenbelt. Wait, Okay, for the gazettement of Greenbelt is an actually an area of open land around a city on which building is restricted. So Greenbelt, such as a river reserve, a riverine flora should be maintained for various reasons, including flood reduction. So actually, the places that government should make it mandatory to sustain Greenbelt of region in development area will thus help in solving flood problem. So for the EIA, for the last one, is environmental impact assessment. So EIA report is actually mandatory for all developments, but there is a certain construction that start without the permission of EIA reports, without achieving the uh, kelulusan, the improvement of the EIA reports. So it is actually quite dangerous because EIA reports want to inform the decision maker and the public of the environmental consequences of implementing proposed projects for the future. So actually within the EIA report, there is actually a mitigation measure that we as a project developer and also the public need to know. So actually EIA must be done before construct or before continuing any construction project. So I would like to proceed with the conclusion. So in conclusion, climate, human activities and failure in drainage system are the main causes of the Kelantan flood, as Nazri stated just now. So flooding in Kelantan has caused the losses in life, money, property, infrastructure and also economy. So actually, economy in Kelantan state is bad because of always constant hit by flood. So actually, with the proposed solution that I have present just now, maybe we can improve the life of people and also the economic sector of Kelantan. So although Malaysia is prompted to face seasonal rainfall annually, where Kelantan is one of the state that will be severely affected, there is still room to improve the mitigation controls of the flood. So actually, as stated also by me, Kelantan State want to build a Negeri Dam. So actually, it is a proved to be a good because dam is actually quite effective to prevent flood. So engineers play a crucial role in designing, researching, and inspection in order to minimize the effect of flooding on society. So actually, as stated also by Nazri about the drainage system, engineer must know the future problem that will occur. So maybe the improvement of drainage system where it can filter all the rubbish also will help to minimize the effect of flooding. So I think that's all from me. So I would like to say thank you to Dr. Balkis. Thank you.
Stop recording. Dah.
Dah stop recording? Dia tak ni.
Oh, nanti dia tu kot.
So I think this problem will continually occur.
Oh, ni kot.